Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
But in all honesty, I was really, really afraid that over the years, and I'd seen this happen, that, I couldn't do 30 years in this job and be able to maintain the same empathy that is necessary to really be able to connect with people and help. And I was afraid of that burnout factor in the doing just solely medical calls.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, Leader Next Gen Core Services, and a big shout out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you very, very much, because I wouldn't be able to do everything I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially those who are watching, listening, and supporting. So thank you all very, very much. This has been an excellent week, and there's so many different things going on out here in North Carolina. I've been teaching, but also recording episodes with some amazing 911 professionals. And my guest next up today is Sheriff Griffin, and he is with the Henderson County Sheriff's Office out of North Carolina. How's it going, sir?
Hey, it's great. Good to be here. Not looking forward to this frigid weather that they're forecasting in the next few days, but overall, today's a good day.
That is correct. It was dropping down to about 20 something, and then at least this morning it was 30 degrees, and I thought, okay, well, I only need the one jacket. I don't need the double layers, so I should be all right. So I'm excited to have you on. You popped into the class yesterday and had a message for the attendees and such, which is really awesome to hear. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But I want to start out with your story. You know, how did you get into public safety to begin with? Because you've got about 42 years in fire rescue and such, but you also got about 33 years in law enforcement. So how did you, let's go back in time and see how you got started to begin with.
Yeah, that's only a few years ago, right?
Yeah, just a couple.
So, as a teenager, I grew up in a rural part of the county. It's not so rural now, but I grew up in a very rural area, and I was really searching for a way to kind of fit in, to find my identity, and actually stumbled on joining the local volunteer fire department, which at the time was it was all volunteer operated, off of donations in large part, and every little bit helped. And once I answered my first call, and especially once I answered the first call and felt like I was able to make a difference, I was hooked. I was hooked into the public safety sector. I had found, what I believed my calling was. And, we go back in those times, and there weren't a lot of opportunities as a career firefighter. Very few. I had toyed with the idea of going to paramedic school, but in all honesty, I was really, really afraid that over the years, and I'd seen this happen, that you know I couldn't do 30 years in this job and be able to maintain the same empathy that is necessary to really be able to connect with people and help. And I was afraid of that burnout factor and in the doing just solely medical calls. Um, and a lot of sheriff's deputies, when we go back 33 years ago when I started, a lot of sheriff's deputies, including some in the department that I started at, uh, they were also volunteer firefighters. So became friends with those sheriff's deputies, gained an interest in law enforcement because, we were two different disciplines, but on the same team. We're out to help the community.
Mhm.
Really respected those guys and saw that at that point, sheriff's department, strong organization, had some really good things going on, and I wanted to be part of that team. So, I joined that, like I said, around 33 years ago, and currently sit here as the sheriff. Something that I never even dreamed would happen.
What do you think it is that a lot of people say that in public safety, it just seems as though it gets into your blood right away, and you're helping folks. What do you think it was for you that it just kind of got into your blood right away?
Listen, it's a combination of things. I'd be lying if I tried to play on just solid ethical foundations. I do think that it's inherent in a lot of people. People enjoy helping people. People enjoy seeing people succeed, or at least that's the way it should be. But when you're young and you can mix some excitement in with that, you can find a challenge, and sometimes that challenge is extreme, and you can kind of put all of that together. And I think that's what hooked me. There were opportunities to help people. There was some excitement. You show up on the scene of a bad accident or a fire, lights flashing, radios blaring, and then you train to face these challenges, and yourself. Sometimes the worst thing that you can do is train and train and train for a challenge that never presents itself because you lose interest in that. But at that time, as I began my training in both fields, fire rescue, law enforcement, the challenges were real. So you would train, you would face the challenges, you would succeed, and it just gave me that opportunity to really apply myself. And I think that's really what resonates with a lot of people.
I agree. I feel like a lot of folks, what they're looking for is to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
That's exactly right.
And I have to ask though, when you made that switch over, when you were first starting out in law enforcement, was there a physical test at all that you had to take?
When you go through basic law enforcement training, there is a physical
Mhm.
test. But there was a group of us that always tried to take care of ourselves. Listen, we're going to go back when I started in the fire service 43 years ago, to where I started in law enforcement 33 years ago. At that point, we didn't have a Gold's Gym on every corner. That stuff didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, but of course we didn't have all the conveniences we had today. There was growing up in a rural part of the county where there's a lot of farms. Man, as a teenager, I got workouts putting up hay. You toss hay bales all day long, and you'll figure out there's got to be an easier way.
Yeah.
So we stayed active, and you go back that far, and it's you're also younger. It's just easier.
Right. The reason I ask as well is because there was a time when I was still in Florida working in dispatch. Our records clerk, Candy, her husband was a kind of a big shot Florida state trooper. And he kept telling me, Ricardo, I can get you in. You just, of course, you got to pass through everything, and I can, give you a letter of recommendation and all this other stuff. And I said, all right, I'll go ahead and try it. I passed everything, and I did pass the physical as well. The thing, though, was I think you only had, I don't know, maybe 4 minutes or something to get through the entire thing, 4 or 5 minutes, something like that. And when it got to the part where you have to drag a 100-pound dummy, I I will never forget this, because I'd been standing in line watching all of these folks do the same thing, and everyone was dragging it differently. And there was just one way that I thought it looked like the easiest way to do it. And I thought it's 100 pounds. It can't be that bad. And when I went to go do it, I grabbed the dummy and I start pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. Halfway there, I get a cramp in my right thigh and I fall over. When I fall over, my shoe goes flying up in the air, and everyone there is yelling at me, "Get up, Martinez, get up, go, go, go." And I got up and I made it. And I dragged it to the end, and I made it all the way to the end. And the very last part, you open up the trunk, you grab out a gun that's not loaded or anything, but I think you have to fire 6 times, and then 6 times with your left. And then you run into the car, put it in the glove compartment, and then put your hands on the steering wheel. Well, I passed it. I still had about a minute and a half left. But when I was leaving, I didn't notice that I still did not have my shoe. And one of the drill sergeants comes running up and he's like, "Martinez," and throws my shoe at me. And he goes, "You got a lot of heart. That's exactly what we're looking for. However, you need to eat more bananas." Because you need a little more potassium so that your legs don't cramp up like that. Take care of yourself. So,
but isn't that a tremendous example, what you just said, of when you come into this business of the teamwork? Because your classmates, whatever,
yeah,
people that you're training with, standing there cheering for you, pulling for you, motivating you to move on. And that's really what makes public safety unique, is that when you want to see your partner succeed.
Right. And for me personally, I was immediately embarrassed when that happened, but not one person was laughing.
Yeah.
Just like you're saying, everyone was just like, "Get up, man, get up. You got it. You got it. You got it." I passed everything, but when I was going through it, I ended up deciding right before, because I was I was close to moving back to Michigan. And I thought, I can't start this career now and leave them like that. So at least I knew that I was able to get through all of it in case I wanted to try it again in Michigan. And I would definitely make sure that I was eating more bananas so that didn't happen again. Learned. Yes. Lesson learned. Now, you end up going through all this time. When you first got in, though, were there any things that, because you had been on the other side for a while, but you jump into law enforcement, was there anything that was, I don't know, maybe eye-opening, or did it seem overwhelming in the beginning?
I'm not going to say overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot in the fire service, but then when you start into law enforcement, and you see some of the situations, the way some of the people live, the way certain people that you haven't dealt with before act. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was certainly intriguing. And you realize in both the fire service and law enforcement, this is a dynamic world.
Mhm.
This world is constantly changing. And the methods we use to police, the methods we use to rescue, the methods we use to extinguish fires, they're changing. Materials are changing. Technology's changing, and we can never stop training. The amount of training that you have to do is really phenomenal. What these folks, because the crimes that we're seeing, some of your basic crimes, domestic violence, yes, but there's a lot that we're seeing today that didn't exist when I started. Um, you know, no crimes existed that related to cell phones or technology when I started.
Mhm.
It wasn't there. So there's it's really it's really interesting the way, like I said, the world has changed, and it's making it harder. Really, it's a lot more difficult to wear multiple hats today
Mhm.
because of all the changes, and all the specialty approaches with everything from the environment to people today.
Yeah, and when you mention people as well, and you get into law enforcement, I think one of the things that's the most eye opening is the I guess humanity. What humans can do to each other. And I saw something online. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I will continue to mention it because it makes so much sense. When if you remember the cartoon Scooby Doo, and it sounds weird saying it right off the bat like that, but when you remember that cartoon, and you're watching it as a kid, it's one thing, but when you see it as an adult, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh, I guess you never really noticed that before. And basically, what it is they're chasing these monsters around, right? There's these monsters that are terrorizing, doing all of these crazy things, but when you take off their masks, what are they? They're human. And it's the same thing when you get into public safety. You start seeing that, yeah, monsters are real, but they're all human.
They are.
It's the craziest thing. Now, all this time, you've gone through, your law enforcement career, just public safety in general. Are there any calls or incidents or anything that you went out on that just kind of stick out to you? Some memorable ones.
Listen, I don't know where to even start on this. There's so many. I can remember, when I was young, something that's never left my mind is working a cardiac arrest,
Mhm.
uh, and watching this man who's retired out of the military, his wife that had been his lifelong partner. Basically, we were trying to save her. We were unsuccessful. But as he knew that she had passed, just watching him cry like a baby, and that sticks with you because it's these calls where you really want to help,
Mhm.
and there's nothing you can do. Um, Back in the 90s, I actually left the sheriff's office for a couple of years. I stayed part time. I
Mhm.
left full time. I dealt with a really, really bad incident, and it was in the middle of the roadway. Came out of nowhere, but one one young child had a twin brother, and found they were riding down the road, and he found a gun in the vehicle, and he shot and killed his brother. And I was flagged down, drove up on this on the side of the road, and you're working to try to help, and knowing the whole time it's futile. There's nothing that can be done here. And I actually left and took a position as a full time firefighter, and then the sheriff at that time called me several times and asked me to come back, and which of course I did. But man, when you you've got to deal with this stuff. You can't completely suppress it, but it's not stuff. These are not incidents that you want to think about every day.
Mhm.
You were talking about um, and this, I guess, is a more of a positive incident.
Mhm.
We had a structure fire back with the volunteer. It was actually a combination department, but I arrived on the scene first. Uh, Fire was rolling, but the back bedroom, uh, and it's in a double wide mobile home. Windows really hard to access. Fire's rolling, and I'm don my gear, air pack, go in, locate a victim that was alive, survived the fire, but it was a rather large person. I was by myself, and as you're talking about dragging and dragging, uh, finally pulled that person about three-quarters of the way out before help arrived, and I was so exhausted. I wasn't going to give up, but I was so exhausted that each step through there, I felt like I was going to throw up in my mask. But overall, that had a positive ending. But there's, man, we could sit here and we could talk about
Right.
this all day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's always good as well to kind of reflect on some of those wins. As I was telling the class yesterday, if you don't journal now, like start getting into it, because when you have hard call after hard call after hard call, and you can go back into that journal of those wins to remember why you are where you are or why you're doing what you're doing. Because I feel like sometimes we get to a point where we start to question, like, am I in the right place? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so that's always good, as you mentioned, that one with the good outcome as well, to remember that. So as on the topic of the dispatchers, 911 professionals of your center here, how important are they to the landscape of public safety?
Everything we do revolves around them. Just about everything. They are right there. We say patrol. We coined the phrase that patrol is the first line of defense for this county. Patrol can't be successful without dispatch. They're separate divisions. Specific jobs are separate, but they rely so heavily on each other. You've got to have good communications. You've got to have folks behind that radio that knows what's going on, can extract the information in a timely manner, can relay it in such a way that they get the point across in a concise manner to the officers as they're responding or on the scene encountering some sort of threat. Believe me, I have worked with so many, and most of them fantastic. But we always, if you're an aggressive patrol officer, you're going to pick up and understand which dispatcher that you really appreciate and who you want on that radio when you have a bad call. You know who you would like to answer that phone if it's somebody from your family making that 911 call. We are so blessed here in Henderson County to have the quality of folks that we have because, that first contact, somebody dials 911 because, their mother, their husband and wife, whatever the crisis is, that is that first point of contact in any crisis in this county, period.
Mhm. I'd love to hear this because for a long time, or at least years ago, it has definitely changed since about 2016 on, that dispatch is seen more and recognized more and everything. And it's just amazing to hear you say these words. And also going into the wrap up of this episode, which has been awesome to have you on and chat and learn more about you and everything in your story. This last question that I have for you, with all of your years of public safety, just all together combined, if you could go back in time to the beginning of your career to talk to yourself, to give yourself some advice, not to change anything, right? Because I feel like we go through many different things, whether it be hard lessons learned or whichever, that bring us to who we are today for our experience. But if you could go back in time just to talk to yourself, to give yourself yourself some advice, what would you say?
Less mouth, more ears.
That works.
That's don't. We're always really quick. We go to some sort of training. We come back and to be a good officer, to be a good telecommunicator, to be a good detention officer. To be honest with you, you've got to have a little bit of an ego. Now, a manager has the task of trying to harness these egos. However, they're as fragile as eggs. You can't crack them,
Yeah.
But a little less ego. Pay more attention to those folks that you thought they've been doing it. Maybe I looked at them as they're not with the times. They're not with the new technology. They're not with the new systems that we're using. Pay a little more of attention to their life experiences, and a little less to your own ego. And I really think if I was starting all over again, that's what I would want to do.
Perfect. Thank you again, sir, for being on, for what you do in public safety, and also for your deep regard for everyone that's here and is doing this job here in public safety. So thank you so very much. And we are going into the wrap up of this episode. For all of you who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. The easiest way to find everything, however, is to go to links. That's links with 2i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there: social media, email, where to hear the latest episode, where to purchase the Imagine Listening books. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next gen core services. Shout out to subscribers as always. And you can see this on Facebook, LinkedIn Live, X, as well as YouTube. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.